I don't think I'll be revealing a huge secret if I told you that every present moment holds several choices in it, which choices lead to several possible decisions, and each one of these possible decisions leads to a completely different life. Case in point, in 2018, I was stuck in Europe in a very low point in my life. And in trying to get myself out of this, I was trying different things. One of these things I tried was a 30-day meditation. The agreement was to listen to it and meditate on it for 30 consecutive days. And so I did. And somewhere in the beginning of that meditation, the instructor who was leading the meditation said something like, I had recorded this meditation on the request of this person from this company. And then the meditation continued. And so for the first 6-7 days, I didn't pay much attention to that. But then on day 8 or 9, I asked myself, who is this person and what is this company? And so following my curiosity after the meditation, I Googled that person and that company. From the very first moment I saw this company and I read about it, I fell in love with it. And so I applied to get a job there, and I did. And that sent me all the way from Europe to Malaysia. And I'd come from the United States in Europe, and I ended up in Malaysia. Soon after that, a new employee came to the company, and she was sitting very close to me. And she ended up being my wife. We ended up having a beautiful child. And this child is the highlight of my entire life. Every small choice leads to a decision. And this decision leads to a completely different life. But now the question is, how do you make the right decision? I don't claim to have the answer to this question, but I have an answer for myself. And I wanted to share it here with you in case you want to take something from it. Before I tell you the conclusion that I've arrived at, I want to acknowledge something. Most present moments tend to come with idea of how they should go. Our mind already has a plan. Yesterday, for example, I was at the gym and I had an idea for how my workout should go. But somewhere 2/3 into my workout, it just felt wrong to continue all the way through. There was this one moment where it felt right to stop right there. And my mind was looking for justification why we should continue the workout and finish it. Now, if I continued the workout, I may have ended up injuring myself. I don't know, and there is no way to know. And this is why the mind has this pull, because it wants to know and it pretends to know. But there is no way of knowing what the future holds. The only way of knowing is to actually live that future. We don't have the luxury of living several timelines at the same time and then come back to the present moment and know which timeline leads to the life that we would actually prefer. We don't have that luxury. And so what's left is exactly this. The right choice comes from what feels right in the moment. And the wrong choice comes from what feels tense in the body. You can probably relate to this, but I've been to gatherings or networking events where there comes this one moment where it just feels right to leave. And the mind has all of the justifications why I should stay. Maybe there is a job opportunity. Maybe there is a business opportunity. Maybe I'm interested in somebody. But there is a very strong message in the biology that says you're done here. And so for me, I've learned to trust that feeling of it feels right in the moment to choose this. And it feels wrong to choose this. Right is there is no tension. It's like Wu Wei, the Taoist philosophy of effortless action. There is no effort. You know it as the flow. And I don't want to use platitudes, but it's true. The other choice or the rest of the choices feel like swimming upstream. They feel like forced. And for me, these are the wrong choices. Now, if I just told you this, just choose what feels right in the moment, I wouldn't be telling you the whole story. The reality is this: sometimes following what feels right in the moment may get you evicted. Let me give you an example. Somebody has a fantastic career, a great paying job, and great prospects. but their soul feels like it's dying one day at a time at this job. What they would much rather do is follow their natural pursuits of what wants to express through them, which, for example, might be to become an artist. But that's where the phrase starving artist comes from. I've personally lived through that. Remember this job I told you about in Malaysia? Well, 2 years into it, all of a sudden, it felt right that I was done with this job, and it felt wrong to continue staying in it. So I chose to leave, but I didn't have anything organized to continue. And so I felt into really hard times just by following what was right at the time. I became a starving artist, and it was really tough. So now you're probably going, oh wow, this is getting complicated. Where is this all going? The answer to me, to this second part, came from my mentor Bernardo Kastrup, the philosopher, and he calls it the diamond. The diamond basically is nature wanting to express through each one of us. There is a caveat. Nature does not care about our survival and well-being. Nature cares about expressing herself. That's it. And it's our job to make sure that we survive and that we're safe. And this is the job of the ego. Here is the true number, and that's the whole picture, at least in my experience. 80% of the time, we follow what feels right in the moment, but there is this 20% where we have to negotiate with nature, with the diamond, with how nature wants to express through us, because if we give an immediate expression to that, then we may put ourselves in a danger. That's why the ego is there, to make sure that in these 20% of the time, we negotiate with nature to secure our survival and our safety, and then support and allow nature to express itself through us. By the way, interestingly, this coincides with the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule, which is a universal rule in life. 80% of the time you wear 20% of the clothes you have in your wardrobe. 80% of the time you end up ordering from 20% of the items on the menu in your favorite restaurant. 80% of the revenue in a business comes from 20% of the customers. 80% of the complaints in the business comes from 20% of the customers. That tends to be a universal rule. Having said all of this, here's what I truly believe and know for myself. Even if we choose to follow this rule of what feels right in the moment 100% of the time, over the longest term, we end up living the lives we're meant to live anyway. But in the short term, it might be more painful, and there might be a bit more suffering and more friction if we choose to go with this feels right in the moment 100% of the time. I think life is a little bit easier if we choose the 80-20. 80% of the time, roughly, we go with what feels right. And 20% of the time, we have to negotiate with our diamond, with how nature wants to express itself, so that there is a bit less suffering. But over the long term, it's all the same. Now, having said all of this, you're probably noticing that we're talking about two minds here. One mind is the mind that sticks to previous ideas, previous plans, and it wants to enforce these plans in the present moment. And this is the mind I personally choose to question. But there is this other mind, which is the ego mind. And the main job of this ego mind is to make sure we physically survive. So to sum it up, two filters, at least in my experience. When I have a choice in the present moment, and there's always a choice, whether we're conscious of it or not, I ask myself, does it feel right in the moment? And if it does, I tend to go with that. But there's the second filter, where is this one of these few occasions where if I go with what feels right, threatens my survival and security. This is the kind of thinking that we do in this channel. If that resonates with you, subscribe. I release a new video every Sunday.